All right, let's talk about AI and cybersecurity. Because right now, there is so much noise, so much hype, and honestly, some pretty scary predictions flying around. So today, we're going to cut through all of that and separate what's myth from what's actually happening on the ground.
You see stuff like this all the time, a vulnerabilities cataclysm. And it's not years away, it's just 6 months away. It paints this picture of AI creating unstoppable hacks that will just completely overwhelm us. Sounds pretty terrifying, right? Like some kind of cyber apocalypse is just around the corner. But is that what's really going on? When you actually talk to the security experts, the people on the front lines dealing with this stuff day in and day out, you get a very different story, a much more interesting one, actually. So, first things first, let's really take a hard look at this whole AI cataclysm idea. Is it a real forecast we should all be panicked about, or is something else going on here? Well, the consensus from people who actually do this for a living is pretty clear. That 6-month timeline, one expert called it, and I'm quoting here, wildly unreasonable. They see this kind of talk for what it is, classic FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Look, AI is a powerful tool, for sure, but it's not magic. It's great at finding simple stuff, but it still really struggles with complex attacks that need that human touch, that intuition. And here's the part of the conversation that almost always gets left out. It's not a one-way street. We talk endlessly about how attackers are using AI, but guess what? The defenders are using it too. It's a full-blown arms race. So yeah, an attacker's AI might scale up simple attacks, but a defender's AI gets better at spotting that exact kind of weird traffic. It's this constant tug of war where both sides are leveling up. Now, there is one area that's a genuine risk, and it's this trend people are calling vibe coding. Basically, you have someone with very little, maybe even no real software experience using an AI to just whip up an app. And the result? Well, one expert said some of these apps don't just have bad security, they have literally zero security. Because if you don't even know you're creating a security hole, how can you possibly fix it? This is cranking out insecure code at a massive, massive scale. And that actually leads us to the real weak spot in all of this. It's usually not about some genius AI breaking impossible code. Way more often, the attackers are targeting something much, much more vulnerable. Us, the human element. So let me tell you about a group called Scattered Spider. These guys are notorious, but not because they're super technical wizards. Nope. Their entire game is built around social engineering. They're masters of tricking people, not computers. They exploit trust. So how's AI fit into their plan? Check out their modern playbook for what we call vishing, that's voice phishing. First, they use AI to scrape social media, gathering all these little personal details about employees to make their story sound legit. Then, a real person, a human operator, calls the company's IT help desk. And here's the crazy part. They have an AI feeding them lines in real time, or even using a cloned voice of the employee. And the con itself? It's so simple. Hey, it's me. I'm locked out of my account. Can you please just reset my password? And you want to know the really scary part? According to a top social engineer at IBM, that IT help desk trick, it's the one thing that works every single time they test it. Every single time. It just goes to show the most advanced AI attack in the world can just be a fancy tool to make a really old, really human trick that much more convincing. And if they can't trick people, well, they've got another move. They actively recruit them. Criminal groups are straight up paying employees for access. And you have to wonder, why does this work? Well, it's a mix of things, right? Economic pressure, maybe a feeling that company loyalty isn't what it used to be. But the bottom line is, an insider threat is one of the absolute hardest things to defend against. They don't need to break in. They already have the keys. This all brings us to maybe the biggest reality check of all, the cyber threats that cause them most damage. They're often not these super sophisticated, cutting-edge attacks. They're simple, unforced errors. The hackers aren't kicking down the door, they're just walking through one that we left wide open. So let me ask you this. What's more dangerous? A brilliant hacker finding some obscure, complex flaw in your code? Or something much simpler? The answer, a lot of the time, might surprise you. It's often just a basic mistake. These right here are the open doors. We're talking about things like a private database that someone accidentally hooks up to the public internet, or never, ever changing a default password from admin. My personal favorite is when a developer turns off a security control to get something to work and then just
forgets to turn it back on. As one expert said, you don't need to be a technical genius. You just need to look for the open doors and walk right in. And to see just how dangerous ignoring these basics can be, let's talk about the comeback of an old enemy, Petya, or at least a brand new version of it. To really get the stakes here, you just have to look at this number. The original NotPetya attack back in 2017, it caused over $10 billion in damages. This isn't some theoretical problem. The impact is absolutely massive. So what's the scary new trick? This new ransomware goes after a system's UEFI firmware. Now, that's the super low-level code that lives on the hardware itself, even before your operating system boots up. And here is the crucial detail. Security experts will tell you that almost nobody ever patches their firmware. The attackers aren't using some futuristic AI weapon. They're exploiting one of the most basic and most ignored security habits there is. So, after all that, what are we supposed to do? If the AI apocalypse isn't here yet, and the biggest threats are just old tricks and simple mistakes, how do you actually win this game? Well, it all comes down to focusing on the fundamentals. Okay, here's the game plan, straight from the experts. 1. Know your inventory. You can't protect what you don't know you have. Simple as that. 2. Practice good hygiene. Patch your systems, especially that firmware we just talked about. 3. Build for resiliency. Stop thinking about if you'll get attacked and start planning for when. 4. Monitor everything all the time so you can spot those open doors before someone else does. And finally, number 5, and this one is so important, train your people with empathy. I absolutely love this quote. Firing someone because they clicked a phishing link? That's not the employee's failure, that's the company's failure to train them properly. Their job is to open emails and click links. The goal has to be creating a culture where it's safe to say, hey, I think I messed up, not a culture where people are terrified of making a mistake. And that really brings us to the final thought here. As we all look at this crazy AI arms race and all these complex threats, you have to ask yourself, where are you really putting your time and money? Is your biggest investment in the next shiny piece of security tech? Or is it in the simple, powerful, and way too often overlooked foundation of common sense?